Okay. Thank you.
Right.
I have to talk it. Okay, we go to chapter 3.
Right.
Chapter 3, word and concept in definition. What we studied the class before was the first operation of human mind we call simple apprehension. Or the grasping of the waters. Grasping the waters. What is that? Okay, simple apprehension. And now we are studying that for two classes, and after we study judgment, proposition. Okay, so when we saw just before that when we have a concept, we express our concept through a word. What is a word? It's a sign. A sign. Okay? What is a sign? A sign is something which, in addition to what it is in itself, also conveys or means something else. If you are at war and you have a rat or a pole, and you put in a white cloth, is it? White, that means reddition. So we have a lot of signs at the street. Red light is a sign. Green light is a sign. A lot. And you have other signs here. So we have two kinds of signs. We have signs that are natural, and that other are artificial. Natural, that means they are conform to nature. There is a real connection between the thing and the meaning conveyed. For example, between fever and sickness. I know I am sick if I have 103 degrees Fahrenheit of. Okay. You have here footprints, presence of an animal, smoke, etc. They are expressing natural event. And you have also, attached to that, you can speak about the body language. The body language. The body language is also a sign. My body is sign of contentment, is sign of friendship, is sign of hatred, etc. It's very important. You know, in Harvard, Massachusetts, there is a department in the Faculty of Psychology, department studying on the body language. And there was a program on that on television 2 or 3 years ago, showing the extreme importance of the body language in American election. According to them, if Kerry lost in his election because it was not a good body language, he was filled with bones here, and you know, many people vote. Only a simple gesture can make you lose millions of votes. Very, very important. No? Artificial or conventional, created by men, by the will of men. For example, red. We stop at red and we pass to the green. That is purely conventional. Purely conventional. You know? The wedding ring. Okay. A red light, a hammer and sickle for Communist Party. Or that American flag. A flag is a sign. Or a sign many people like in the United States. Somehow they like more than that. The sign, you know, etc. And the pictogram now, you can go to any country, even if you don't know the language, you can guide and drive. Only looking at the pictograms, the signs. Now, signs are also instrumental or formal. Well, they are either natural or conventional, They are either instrumental or formal. Instrumental sign or formal sign. Well, instrumental sign is not difficult to understand that. For example, here, that sign is instrumental to explain to the design the Communist Party. That explains the capitalist, rich people. That explains the Christians, etc. They are instrument, and they design something else than the thing itself. The flag is not the content, but the flag represents the United States, Canada, France, Germany, China, etc. Okay? So every natural and artificial sign can be instrumental. For example, fever, which is a natural sign, is also an instrumental sign. Because you discover fever, you can heal the person, you can find there is some sickness, But there are signs, those signs are something material. Fever, I can control that. A flag, I can see that. But some signs, they are signs, but they are purely signs. They have no material existence. But by analogy, to understand that, I come back to optic. Well, here we have a Christmas tree. Christmas tree. Etc. Okay? The Christmas tree is here. Do you see the Christmas tree on your retina? No. You don't see that. Nobody sees that. And we know that it is there. Scientifically, we know that. Because the rays go in line. So here on my retina, I have the Christmas tree upside down. You see me upside down. When you receive my feet are up. But you don't see that. But if you don't have that, you cannot see the other. It is the case of glaucoma, for example. In my case, I have glaucoma. So I lost a part of my eye. So I see only with a part of my eye. But if I become totally, I lose all that, I cannot see. In fact, you see the tree through that imagery. You don't see the image. So, in fact, for you, that image has no existence. But by analogy, we can see that. For example, you have the image of a cat. Do you see the image of the cat in your imagination? No. You see the cat through that image. Like you see the tree through that image. We call that a formal sign. The phantasm has as function to indicate another thing. Its existence is purely formal, but it is necessary. You cannot represent a dog in your mind without a phantasm, but you cannot see the phantasm. You see the dog through the phantasm. So the phantasm is a formal sign. His existence is purely to indicate the dog. But you cannot catch it, you cannot see it. But it must be there. So it's a sign purely. And it is the same for the concept. The concept is function is to represent the reality. In that we have two formal signs, phantasm and concept. And that is the definition. Look at that. The formal sign is not something in itself. It is only a pointer or an indicator of something else. The phantasm is not something, but reality is to indicate another thing. That is the case of the phantasm and the case of the concept. Two formal signs. It is not necessary for your salvation to understand that, but it is very useful in philosophy. It's difficult for us because a sign for us, it is something material. I give you an analogy. It's not. When you look at yourself in the mirror, can you touch, can you join the image you see in front of you? But that image represents you. But in fact, that image does not exist. Scientifically, it is a virtual sign, a virtual image. But it is there. Its role is not to exist in itself, it is to represent you. You study object, huh? You study object, you know that picture in the mirror, you cannot touch it. That picture does not exist in itself. But its existence, because you see that, it is only to represent you. You cannot fix that on the picture. You cannot fix that on the paper. But that analogy can help you to understand that the phantasm and the concept are formal signs. Their nature is not to be something, their nature is to be a pointer, to indicate, like the picture in your mirror does not exist really, exists only virtually. You exist. The picture in front of you does not exist. But you see it. In fact, you see yourself in a virtual way. Interesting. Okay, now I continue. The sense image and the concept existing only in your mind are only means of knowing. The concept and the phantasm are only means of knowing. They are never object in themselves first. We cannot catch them. We cannot materialize the phantasm. But I see through the phantasm. I know through the concept. The concept indicates me some reality. For example, the concept of dog indicates the reality in the world of an animal we call dog. Okay? The sense image is only a representation of the material world. The sense image is also called phantasm, similitude, sensible express species. The sensible express species is a formal sign, like the virtual image is a formal sign in the mirror. Okay? And finally, the concept is only a mental image, the same thing, a species. Don't forget, species means image, similitude, likeness, phantasm, when it is expressed, okay, in your sense. They are not something else. They are formal signs because their whole being is to stand for another being, another thing. Here we are in philosophy. Try to explain that to your kid. I think it's not wrong. Here you have to understand. You have to have an insight. If you have the insight after, you can explain that. I tried to give you what I can, but I cannot take your place. But think about that. Huh? I cannot see, I cannot catch the phantasm, but I see through the phantasm. Well, I take an analogy, but that analogy is not very good, but it's better than nothing. You know, in the old Kodak, we call it camera, we take the picture on the negative. The negative is like the impress, a sensible impress species. After that, you develop. You develop, and you have a picture. Suppose you have the picture of your of your mother. Suppose picture of your mother. When you look at my mother, if you say that, it's not true. It is not your mother. It is a picture of your mother. When you look at your picture, it is not you. Because that is the function of the picture is only to represent another reality. The difference between that picture, photograph, and the phantasm is one can be put on paper, the other is only in your imagination or in your intellect. But it is the same role. There is, if you go to your computer, maybe you go to cela n'est pas une pipe. It is in French. That is not a pipe. It is a painter in French, I forgot his name. He painted a pipe. Painted a pipe. He said, this is not a pipe. It was the title of his painting. This is not a pipe. He is philosophically totally right. The picture of yourself is not yourself. But a picture allows other people to know you. They know you through a phantasm, through an appearance, through a likeness. The difference in a picture, you can see that. In the phantasm, you cannot see that. But it's there. Yes?
So we don't know anything directly.
We know directly many things.
I know that it's a tree, but I don't know the tree directly. I only know it through the sense image. Correct?
Yeah, but to know my sense image is directly. My knowledge is communicated directly with the object. It is a direct knowledge, but that knowledge, don't forget that the concept is at the end. No? The concept is at the end, the phantasm is at the end. That means when I reflect on a thing, when I represent the barn of my uncle or the dog of my uncle or my grandfather, that is virtual. It is not existing. That image I have is purely a mean to indicate the barn. Like my picture of my mother or the picture of the pipe is only to indicate something else. Strictly speaking, a picture is only a sign to indicate something else. But of course, we see that is my father, that is my mother. No, it's only paper. It's only paper. Your mother is not there, but the representation of your mother is there. The representation of the pipe. So it's the reason why that artist, the French artist, he entitled his painting, this, cela n'est pas une pipe. That is not a pipe. And we say, it's a pipe. No, it's not a pipe. It is the representation of a pipe. Important. Think about all your pictures. They are purely representation. In fact, they are not. They are not. Okay? Another word can be an artificial sign. Most of the time the words are artificial, conventional. Why we say dog in English, we say chien in French, we say perro in Spanish, and canis in Latin? I don't know. It is Some words are close to nature. For example, the word mama, mama, mama. But that is almost the same word in almost every language, because a baby, mama, papa. Papa, abba, for example, is universal. But it is so close to nature, you know. The majority of words are conventional. And we have to learn that. When you know a new language, you have to know a new sound, vocabulary, as you are doing now for philosophy. You are knowing a new word, old word, but a new signification. So it's artificial. And you can find that in the dictionary, etc. Now the word can be univocal, equivocal, or analogical. And you have some exercises on that in your paper. The paper I gave you. If you want to play logic during the week, you can play that game. The game to know if it is equivocal, univocal, or analogical. Equivocal. The same word designed two things or many things in a total different way. Total different way. For example, close. Close can mean near, it can mean to shut, no? To close the door, shut the door, or near, close. You know? We have the word back, etc. So in every language you have that. We call that equivocal terms, equivocal word. And it's important to have the same concept. When the American, they discussed with the Russian during the Cold War, both of them, they spoke about peace. But the Pax Americana and Pax Sovietica did not have the same definition. It is the same when the employees discuss with their employer about wage, just wage. They don't have the same definition. Yeah. And at times, sometimes they take many days before arriving to a same definition. They go on strike, etc. You understand that? Huh? Okay? The same word for love. And love is very ambiguous, very equivocal. Equivocal. Now, univocal is the contrary. Univocal has only one meaning. Only one meaning. Apply to different things. For example, animal apply to man, to cat. You know, that is we call it genus. General. Genus, general. A word applied to many things. You know, that is a univocal. Sport for baseball, soccer, hockey, etc. Tennis. That is, if you bird for a pigeon, for a swallow, for a owl, etc. You have, after that, you have called analogical. Analogical means comparison. In the analogical word, we have something in common in something different. There is a relation between the different reality, but that relation is not completely univocal. It is a part of equivocity. In fact, it is mid-term between univocal and equivocal. Bon, an example of that. King. We say the Pope, before, now he never said that, but in fact, before on the 23rd, we have the tiara, the tricorn. And one was the king of Italy, and after that, the king of Rome. And after that, the king of Vatican. Pope is a king. Elizabeth II is the queen of England. Elvis Presley is the king. It's the king. We call him the king. The king of rock and roll. And you have Joe Blow is the king of potatoes, because he's the best to cook potatoes. And you have the Dairy Queen. Dairy Queen, the queen of the dairies. So we use king, we use queen. They're the same. The Queen Elizabeth and Francis and Elvis Presley and Joe Blow. They are king or they are queen because there is something common. They are the best, or they are the control, they are the leader, etc. But they are not the same. The Queen of England and the Pope is not the same. And Elvis Presley is quite different from the Queen of England. You know? So that is analogy. There is something common, there is something different. That we call that analogy of proportionality. Proportionality. It's based on ratio. For example, you say 4 on 8 as 16 on 32 as 25 on 15. That is proportionality, because there is something common and the ratio is 1/2. So we apply that in mathematics, but it's the same. I gave you just before in the other class an analogy when I told you that the form is to matter like the act is to potency, and I can add also the soul, human soul already, and is the act of the body. So what is common? Form, matter, act, potency, soul, body. It is a perfection, a determination. Everything is give to the lower perfection, a determination. You know? We do that many times. Sometimes we don't write like that, but we use metaphor, simile, comparison. Jesus used that a lot. Parable, parable, comparison. You know? God is like a sword. God is like a king. So, an analogical word, see. Analogy comes about because of some resemblance between two different things. You know? Sunny stands for bright day and bright disposal of mind. So we make a lot of comparisons. Sometimes we condense that, we call that metaphor. A metaphor, in fact, it is an analogy. So the connection may be close or tenuous. It is a resemblance without identity. I cannot say, for example, here, that every act is a form, because every act is not determining matter. So it can happen that an act is determining the will. But there is something in common. It is both of them, act and form, are determining what is under. Act, form is determining matter. Act is determining potency in such a way that I can say the form is the act of the matter. I can say the form, the soul is the form of the body. I can say the soul is the act of the body. And when I do that, I make a metaphor. I make a comparison, condensed comparison. Okay? I continue. L3, for example, that is proportionality. But we have also another kind of analogy we call analogy of attribution. You know, if you don't understand now, we'll come back on that probably on January when we study metaphysics. You know, when we study logic, we touch almost all the problem in metaphysics. Because the way a being exists and the way we know a being, there should be a connection. We know because being exists, no? So there is a correspondence between logic and metaphysics. But both are totally different. Okay? So, healthy. What is healthy? Strictly speaking, is the body. But you can speak about food. You can speak about sport. You can speak about sleeping, sleep. You can speak about vacation, medicine, etc. All those things are linked, are healthy because they are provoking, helping the body to be healthy. Strictly speaking, health is not in the medication. Health is not in the pill. Health is not in the sport. Health is in the body. But I can say that sport is healthy because it helps the body to be healthy. I can say vacation are very healthy because they help the body to be healthy. I can say that food is very healthy because it helps the body to be healthy. You understand that? In that case, the attribution first is in the body, and the other are called healthy because of their relation to the body. That is the case of attribution. And when we study metaphysics, instead of body, we will see being. Being. God is being, man is being, cat is being, flower is being, but not in the same way. There is something in common, but different. Okay, but being is, we have mode of being and being. For example, you exist as a human being. And when you speak, when you dance, when you read, then you are also you are a human being. But laughing, talking, dancing are mode of being. They are mode. They are the way, the manner of exercising your being. They are not being. Okay. I continue. Other example. We use continually analogy. The Bible is filled with analogy, from cover to cover. Why? Who saw God?
Moses.
Even Moses saw through a veil. In fact, we know God through analogy. And a good example of that is the prayer Jesus taught us. When you pray, you will say, Our Father. So Jesus applied to God the analogy of Father. And when he said that, he thought about Joseph. And when we see that, we think about our Father. So that is very dangerous, because if father is an alcoholic, he's beating your mother, it's difficult to say God is my Father. We know God through analogy. We speak about the mercy of God, we speak about the justice of God, the intelligence. How we can know the intelligence of God? From our own intelligence. The power of God from what we see in nature. That is very, very important. In fact, every spiritual reality is known through analogy. Even those who don't believe in God, they use analogy. Our language is filled with analogy. We don't realize that, but our reality, which are not directly known through our senses, they are known through analogy, through comparison. So, the Son of Justice, our Mother, the Catholic Church, dog, a friend of man, the salt of the earth, you are the light of the earth, Elvis, the king of rock and roll, etc. Analogies are very numerous. And when we want to explain something difficult to children, like I do when I teach philosophy, I use comparison. What is comparison? It is analogy. You cannot preach, you cannot teach without analogy. You can teach, give the definition, but people will not understand. If you want people to understand, you have to take comparison. My teaching since the beginning is filled with analogy. No? I use the analogy of the eye. I use the analogy of the slide. I use the analogy of the Kodak. Many, many analogies. Why? Because we know through our senses. Or our senses don't give the spiritual meaning, they don't give the immaterial meaning. So we have to detach and to use those experience as starting point to understand something we cannot directly experience. Nobody can experience directly the mercy of God. But we can think about the mercy of my father, my mother, the mercy of, no? Okay? That is very, very important. You study theology, it is filled with analogy. You pray the song, they are packed with analogy. Packed. The Bible is based on analogy because nobody has a direct knowledge of God. There is not a single definition of God in the Bible saying God is a pure spirit, creator of heaven and earth. You cannot find that in the Bible. But you can find God is a creator. He made the sun, he made the moon, he made twice men. Imagine twice. You know that? The first time he created, after that he said, oh, he took it, he made a woman with that. Huh? No, the analogy. So it's very important when you explain the Bible. You cannot take that to the foot of the letter. No? The author used analogy, comparison, because people cannot know otherwise. That is true in everything, everything. Fable are analogy. Okay. Now the concept. The concept is, we saw that here. We have the intellect abstract, detached from the phantasm. What is immaterial, and he universalized that. He applicable to everything. That's the concept. A concept is the representation of reality, but detached from individual, detached from sensible, and applicable to everything. The concept of justice, the concept of beauty, the concept of car, of plane, is applicable to everything. That is a characteristic of the concept. A concept must be applicable to a lot of things. Okay. Now, a concept. It is another, okay. The being and the function of a concept have to reflect naturally to the knower the whatness found in the individual sensibility. And the concept enables someone to know something. But to know something not in the particularity or the singularity, but to know something in the universality. When you give the definition of what is a beaver, you know what is a beaver? A beaver, Canadian beaver with a maple leaf, people of Canada. But it's not, a beaver is not Canadian, American also. Any kind of beaver who build dams on rivers. That beaver is universal. But if I speak about particular kind of beaver, no, I restrain. I have to say those beaver or this beaver. But the concept is not attached to someone. If I speak about human being, I cannot reduce that only to American or to Canadian. No, I mean, a white man is a universal reality, a concept applicable to everyone. Okay. The whatness of form, and be careful, the whatness or form, or nature, or essence, or quiddity, new terms. Here you have to enrich your vocabulary. They are almost synonym, but not totally. They design the same thing, but not exactly the same manner. I explain that here. Many times in the conversation, we use one for the other. For example, you ask, what is that? And you have an answer, And when you have the definition, you know the wildness. That is not in the dictionary. It is a creation from Sister Stryper. In Latin, it is quidditas. So the word is quiddity, quid in Latin. What is that? Definition. But the definition, it is purely conceptual here. Okay? Now, if you look at the beaver, and you know what is a beaver, you have the definition of the beaver. But you see, the beaver did not exist all the time. He happened to exist about 500,000 years ago. Therefore, in the beaver, you distinguish the existence of the beaver and the essence of the beaver. So the essence, it is the whatness in relation with its existence. Well, I give you another example. What is a man? Man is a rational animal. Rational animal. An animal with reason. Suppose, sometimes you forget when you drink too much. When I was a kid, I did catechism. What is drunkenness? It is a vice that makes man like an animal and often kill him. That it was animal, but drunkenness was defined as it was evil because man was losing his rationality and become only an animal. It's the same for drug. When people use drug, they are no more human. They become animal. They are losing what is specific to them, the oneness. Now I say, man began to exist 1 million years ago, for example. So in man, in the definition of man, I distinguish the fact what he is and the fact he exists. See, it's the difference between essence and existence. Well, we will come back in metaphysics about that. That is the metaphysical approach. I can distinguish also in man with the nature of man. What is the nature of man? It is the essence of man, or if you want, it is the definition of man, as principle of activity. So I know man not directly, but through his activity. For example, man is able to think, man is able to laugh, man is able to, etc. You know, and through his activity, I can discover that he is an animal, he eats, and that he is rational, he prays, he thinks, he reflects. So that is the nature. So when we speak about nature, for example, I say, I must act according to my nature. That means I must act according to my definition or my essence. Why? What is the difference between essence and nature? In essence, I don't consider the activity itself. But in the nature, I consider the activities. So when I speak about ethics, when we study ethics in March, I hope it will be still there. We will speak about the nature. We have to act, but is to act morally. It is to act according to my nature. That means I must act as an animal. I must act as a rational animal. I must act as an animal. I'm not an angel. I must eat. I must act as a rational. I must use my reason. Even when I act with my animality, I must use my rationality. Is the reason why even the material action to eat, to reproduce, to grow, etc., they must be accompanied with the reason. Is the reason why in all civilization there is always laws about marriage. Laws about eating. Some religion, they don't eat pork. They don't eat dog, you know. In American religion, they don't eat cat. In Vietnamese religion, they eat cat. You know, the word are almost the same in definition of man, rational animal. Essence of man, rational animal. Nature of man, rational animal. But there is a distinction. Here it is essence, rational animal, as existence or not, existing or not, receiving existence. Here it is rational animal, but as acting, that means in his morality, in his action. But it is always rational animal. Okay? So I go to yes, universality. Now, if a word is universal, if it is universal, it is applicable. And if it is applicable in philosophy, we say, in grammar, we say it is attribute. It is an attribute. In philosophy, we say it is a predicate. Applicable. Well, I give you an example. This apple is red. This apple is red. Red is an attribute of apple. You learned that in the third grade. Remember that, huh? Why you can apply red to apple? Because red can be applied to any material thing. Because red is a universal concept, because red is a universal concept, it can be applied to many things. And because of that, in grammar, we say that red is the attribute of apple. It is what we studied in the third grade. But in the 19th grade, in philosophy, now we say predicate. It is the same thing. Why a term is predicate of a subject? Because it is universal. Universal. If I say John is a good golfer, good golfer is a concept. And is applicable to John because it can be applicable to every good golfer in the world. You know? So that is a predicate. Predicate or attributed. So the consequence of universality is the application of the term to many individuals. You have the concept cat. We can say Fido is a cat, Nani is a cat, and Tinia is a cat. I don't know other cats. Or the cat. Cat can be applied, or dog can be applied to every individual. Okay? So the consequence of the concept, the universalization of the concept, is the applicability of the concept to many things. In fact, when you have a subject and a predicate, the predicate is applied to the subject because he has a universal extension. Okay? So the universal is that property, but one concept is applicable. Okay? The universal can be perceived by many, but is not necessarily encountered in more than one. In certain cases, the concept is only for one. The sun, for example, only for one. Well, if you have only one son, that is my son. If you have many, my sons. Okay. But son can be applied to Jesus as the Son of God, can be applied to every child, male child in a family is a son. So son is universal concept. Applied to my son, applied to the Son of God, applied to any kind of son. Okay? Now, because a term can be applicable to many, the term has an extension. So in a term, you can distinguish two things. we can distinguish the extension and the comprehension of the term. And now if you go to the tree of porphyry, we see that very well. Substance is more universal than body. And sentient body is less universal than body. In animal and rational animal is, so we go, more we define, the more we define a term, we define a term by those things, no? The less is the extension. And then, if you go to the a substance, a body, a sentient, an animal, finally rational, like here, among the group of being on earth, you have a little group, it is man. But it is very precise. So the more you precise, the less is the extension. So the extension is the inverse order than the comprehension. So you go, the more you comprehend a thing, the less the what is the extension. And that is true, even the problem when you have to explain, suppose you have a class, you have only 5 students. Well, you can concentrate all your time on those 5. If you have 50 students, if you have 500, no, in France, for example, the Faculty of Law, the first year they have 1,200 students in the class. 1,200. But at the end of the year, they keep only 200. The studies are free. Go to France, they are free. But you have to be the best if you want to continue. That is the control. So the deeper you are going in the understanding of a thing, the more you are solving. It's the same for a problem. You have a problem for health, for example, or any kind of problem, you are little by little precising. Okay? Now, in the order now of the tree of porphyry, at the top we have the genus. And mean genus comes from general, a term which is very wide. Because it is very wide, it can apply to many things. For example, the term substance. Substance is very, very, very general. It can be applied to immaterial reality or physical reality. If it is applied to physical reality, it is body. But body, it can be non-living and living. If it is living, the body can be sentient or non-sentient. For example, a flower is not sentient. A fly, a bee is sentient. Okay? And sentient, after you can have intelligent or not intelligent. So here you have the genus. And to pass from one to the other, you must have some difference. So what is the difference between substance and body? It is one is material, no, it is not material. No, that is a body. The difference after, it is one as life, it can reproduce, it can spontaneity, immanent, movement from itself, or non-spontaneous. For example, a diamond is a body, non-sentient, non-living. But a flower, a cat, a flea, a cockroach, a bird, a camel, they are living. Not living, that means they grow, they assimilate. But someone have a nervous system, other don't have a nervous system. So don't have that nervous system, you have flower, for example, vegetable. But with a certain, you have here animal. Animal, they have are endowed with. And finally, we have non-rational and rational. So at the top, you have the genus, and after that, you have difference. Huh? And finally, we arrive here at the bottom, and we have the species. Ha! Species! Another meaning. Is it the same meaning as the other before? Now, here is the species we find in physics, in botanic. No? Species. I told you, the word is tricky. We see, remember what we said just before? Sensible, impressed, species. Sensible, expressed, species. Intelligible, impressed, species. Intelligible, expressed, species. And the word species being image, representation. Here is that? No. Here is species in the meaning of chemistry, physics. Physics. So man is a species, and our cousin, the monkey, is another species. But you know, for someone, it's sad to say, but someone, animals are the same species they are. They treat animals sometimes better than their own children. A few years ago, I received some statistics from the United States Department of, I don't know what department, industry or economy. And I was astonished when they said Americans, they consecrate to toddler, little babies, $9 billion in food. $9 billion in food. For pet, $32 billion. $32 billion and for pets and for toddler, potato baby, 9 million. Wow. Statistic, but if you go to a supermarket, you will see walls are filled with food for dog, for cat, for birds, etc. Humane society. So if your son is sick, don't call humane society. No.
You might eat good though.
You know, the word expresses something. Before we call society, in French, la Société de protection des animaux, SPCA, for Canadian, to the humane society. That means the philosophy is changed. The notion of man is changed. And recently, for that in the other class, I saw a program on television. It was a woman about 30 years old, and she was discouraged, suffering, and she said, my mother loved more his dogs and cats than she loved her children. They were she took care of them, she did not take care of us. Humane society. It is very humane. Look at the advertising about the adoption of cat and dog. Do we give the same amount of money for the adoption of children? We know the nature of a thing according to its activities. We know a tree according to its fruit. That is very, 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 for me it's a big question. What is the value under that? You look at television, every hour, every half hour, they announce adoption for cats, for dogs. Oh, they are so good, they are so humane. They adopt cats, they adopt cats. And children, I stop here. I don't want to be kicked by Uncle Sam. I have, okay. So we have inferior and superior. Genus in the tree is superior and the other genus are inferior and specific. But that inferior has no meaning of morality. It's only a position in the tree, okay? So don't... I go now to the conclusion. In consequence, we can say, it is the comprehension of the thing, of the object, which determines its extension. And what is the comprehension? Comprehendo means to prehendo in Latin, like in English, is to catch, to grasp, come together. So the comprehension, in fact, it is the definition. We try to do that. Next class, in 2 classes, we study definition, because definition is the summit of simple apprehension. In fact, the goal of simple apprehension is to arrive to a definition. It is true for any science. In any science, the scientists try to define what is a thing. Because when we define what is a thing, we can use it, or we can fight it. And when we know what is AIDS, we can fight. As long as, for example, Ebola. You know Ebola? Huh? Ebola is killing 100 and extending at full speed. Huh? So we know the word Ebola, but we have to define the disease and to define the medication which fight the disease. Define. Comprendre. In French, we have to comprendre. To understand in French, it is to comprendre. In fact, comprendre comes from comprehension. Comprendre, to understand. In fact, we study logic to understand. We study science to understand the reality. What is the reality? And when we know what is the reality, we can find the cause, and we can find the end. We can find what is the cause of that, and we can find what we can do with that. The technology is following scientific research. So we have to know what is steam, and what is producing steam before creating engine, steam engine. So that is the logical of it. And so the way we think, it is first to try to define things. And we define things by dividing. And we have that. Look at the paper I gave you at the end of the chapter. It is an exercise. We have, what is logic? Logic is division, to make a good definition. That is not good. A book, what is a book? A book, what is a missal? Excuse me, what is a missal? No. A missal is a book. In the order of Porphyry, the summit is the Gilles. It is a book. Book is the Gilles. Is the more general term. A book. Okay? What kind of book? So we can say a book containing what is said or sung, a book not containing what is said or sung. In fact, we precise by contradiction. We deny, and denying the thing, we affirm the thing. So to affirm what is a missal, I must say that the missal is not containing, it is different of the book which do not contain text and song. For example, a novel. A novel is not a missal. Okay? A missal contains, what is said of words, text, and music and song. Okay? Now, many books can contain song and music. And those books are not used during the Mass. For example, a libretto, the opera, is a book containing words and music. but we don't use a libretto at Mass. We use that at the opera. At the opera, they use a libretto. So here we must say, some are used at Mass, those are not used at Mass. So what we are doing, we are defining. So the comprehension is deeper, but the extension is narrower. And finally, during the whole year or not during the whole year. So we can, a missal, normally it is for the whole year, but sometimes we have a missal for funeral, a missal for marriage. Now, a missal, it is containing all the text for the whole year. So what is a missal? And you have the definition of a missal. It is a book containing all that is said or sung during the entire year. That is the definition. So we define by putting aside what it is not. So a definition, it is to recite. Well, you have another example, a telephone. So you can do that. It is an instrument. What is the genus here? What is the genus, the more universal term? Instrument. Don't write telephone. Some student here will write telephone. A telephone is a telephone. The word to be defined must not enter the definition. So a telephone is an instrument. You put the genus, instrument. An instrument for reproducing sound at distance. Reproducing sound at distance. So reproducing sound at distance. But some instruments don't reproduce sound at distance. They are not telephone. They can be a CD player. They are not telephone. Okay? Now, I continue the definition. Especially one with sound is converted into electrical impulses. So, that sound is transformed into electrical impulses. But some instruments are not transformed into electrical response. For example, in Africa, they use the tam-tam to communicate from village to village. It is a telephone. It's not a real telephone. The telephone must use electrical impulses. But they use material impulses. And they say, something is, they send that to our village. So it is the way they communicate. And finally, for transmission by wire, to wire. So wire and not wire. So if you have a cell phone, it will be here. A telephone, it is with wire. Cell phone, it is without. So we define. And the more a definition is defined, the less it is expanded. So you can work on that. And I give you some pages, only for curiosity, some pages about analogy, metaphor. It is only for your information. So if we have plenty of time, you can read that. But there is no obligation, no examination. But it can inspire me for some quiz, but it's not necessary to see. But if you can, it is a way to enrich your knowledge of English. Because it's something interesting. Maybe you will learn something with that. Okay, so congratulations, nobody's known. So you know my method, Try to read what we saw tonight, read the text for next week, prepare, and I think it's not too difficult. And also you have the opportunity to work together. It's a good way to understand, if you understand. Have a good, safe turn for enjoying.